Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Aurora, watching the stars drift past through the main window. The ship moved quietly through space, heading toward the outer planets of the Kepler system. It was supposed to be a routine patrol mission, nothing more than checking on the mining stations and making sure everything was running smoothly. Jake had been in command of the Aurora for 3 years now. She was a good ship, not the biggest or fastest in the fleet, but reliable. His crew knew their jobs well, and most days passed without any real excitement. Today felt different, though. Jake could not shake the feeling that something was about to happen. "Commander," called out Amy Foster from her position at the communications station. "I'm picking up something strange on the long-range sensors." Jake turned toward her. Amy was young but skilled, one of the best communication officers he had worked with. She rarely got excited about anything, so when she looked worried, Jake paid attention. "What kind of strange?" he asked, walking over to her station. "It's a signal, sir. Very powerful, coming from the direction of the Zephyrian homeworld." Amy's fingers moved quickly over her controls, trying to clean up the signal. "But that's not the strange part. The strange part is what it's saying." Jake felt his stomach tighten. The Zephyrians had been enemies of humanity for almost 50 years. Their crystal-based technology was far different from human designs, and the two species had fought countless battles over planets and resources. No Zephyrian had ever tried to contact humans peacefully. "Put it on speaker," Jake ordered. The bridge fell silent as Amy worked her controls. A moment later, a voice filled the air. It was clearly alien, with a musical quality that made it sound almost like singing, but the words were in perfect English. "Human vessel, this is Queen Valara of the Zephyrian Empire. I require immediate audience. My daughter needs you. Please respond." Jake stared at the speaker in shock. Captain Lisa Harper, his second in command, stood up from her chair with her mouth open. Even Dr. Ryan Clark, who was visiting the bridge, looked stunned. "Did she just say what I think she said?" Lisa whispered. The message repeated itself word for word. Queen Valara's voice sounded desperate, almost pleading. Jake had heard recordings of Zephyrian communications before, during the war. They were always cold and threatening. This was completely different. "Amy, can you verify the source?" Jake asked. "Already working on it, sir." Amy's hands moved over her controls again. "The signal is definitely coming from Christia, the Zephyrian homeworld, and the quantum encryption patterns match what we have on file for official royal communications." "It could be a trap," Lisa said quietly, moving closer to Jake. "Think about it. They've been fighting us for decades, and now suddenly their queen wants to talk, and she's asking for help? It doesn't make sense." Dr. Clark stepped forward. He was an older man with gray hair and kind eyes, but Jake knew he had seen plenty of combat during the war. "I agree with Captain Harper. The Zephyrians have never shown any interest in peaceful contact. Why would they start now?" Jake looked around. The bridge. His crew was watching him, waiting for orders. He knew they were all thinking the same thing. This could be the trap that ended their lives and maybe even started a new war, but something in the Queen's voice bothered him. Jake had heard desperation before in the voices of human mothers during evacuations, in the calls of soldiers who were surrounded by enemies. Queen Valara sounded exactly like that. "Sir," Amy said softly, "the message is repeating again. And there's something else. I'm detecting other signals in the area. Zephyrian military ships, but they're not moving toward us. They're just dieting." Jake made his decision. "Amy, open a channel." "Commander, I really think we should contact Earth Command first," Lisa said. "Get permission before we do anything." "There's no time," Jake replied. "If this is real, if the Queen really needs help, waiting could make things worse. And if it's a trap, we'll deal with it." Amy nodded and opened the communication channel. Jake took a deep breath. "Queen Valara, this is Commander Jake Morrison of the human ship Aurora. We received your message. Please explain what kind of help you need." The response came quickly. "Commander Morrison, I thank you for responding. My daughter, Princess Liana, is dying. Our healers cannot save her. I have learned that humans possess medical knowledge that might help. I'm willing to set aside all past conflicts for her sake. Jake felt his heart beat faster. The Queen was talking about her daughter, about saving a life, but Lisa was right to be suspicious. The Zephyrians had never shown any interest in human medicine before. Your Majesty, with respect, humans and Zephyrians are very different. Our medical knowledge might not work on your people. I understand the risks, Commander, but I must try everything. Will you come to Christia? I will guarantee your safety. Jake looked at his crew. Lisa was shaking her head slightly. Dr. Clark looked thoughtful. Amy was watching her instruments. Carefully, the rest of the bridge crew waited for his decision. I need a moment to discuss this with my officers, Jake said. Of course, but please, Commander, time is running short. Jake motioned for his senior staff to gather around him. They spoke in low voices so the communication system would not pick up their words. This is insane, Lisa said immediately. We can't trust them. For all we know, this princess doesn't even exist. But what if she does? Dr. Clark asked. What if there really is a dying child, and we're the only ones who can help? Even if that's true, we don't know anything about Zephyrian. Biology, Lisa argued. How could we possibly help? Jake thought about the war, about all the fighting and death between their species. He thought about the hatred that had built up over the years. But he also thought about the Queen's voice, the way she had said, "My daughter needs you." What's Earth Command's current position on Zephyrian contact? Jake asked. Official policy is to avoid all unnecessary contact, sir. We're supposed to report any attempts at communication and wait for orders. And how long would that take? Amy checked her instruments. At least 6 hours for the message to reach Earth and 6 hours for a response. Maybe longer if they need to discuss it. Jake made his choice. Set course for Christia. Sir? Lisa looked shocked. We're going to help if we can. If it's a trap, we'll fight our way out. But if there's really a dying child, and we have a chance to save her, then we have to try. Lisa still looked worried, but she nodded. Understood, sir. I'll have the crew prepare for possible combat. Jake opened the communication channel again. Queen Valara, we're on our way. But I want to make something clear. We're coming in peace, to help if we can. But if this is some kind of trick, we will defend ourselves. I understand, Commander. And I give you my word as Queen and as a mother, that you will be safe. Thank you for coming. The channel closed. Jake looked out at the stars as the Aurora changed course, heading toward the Zephyrian homeworld. In a few hours they would either be making history or flying into the biggest trap of their lives, but as he listened to the Queen's voice again in his memory, Jake felt sure they were doing the right thing. Sometimes he thought you had to take risks to make things better. Sometimes you had to choose trust over fear. The Aurora flew through space toward an uncertain future, carrying a human crew toward their greatest enemy's homeworld, hoping to save a life and maybe, just maybe, change the course of history. The Aurora approached Christia 3 hours later. Jake stood on the bridge, staring at the planet through the main window. He had seen pictures of the Zephyrian homeworld before, but seeing it in person was completely different. The planet sparkled like a giant jewel. The surface was covered in crystal formations that caught and reflected the light from the system's twin suns. Massive spires rose from the ground, some reaching so high they disappeared into the clouds. The whole planet seemed to glow with its own inner light. It's beautiful, Amy whispered from her station. It's also heavily defended, Lisa added, reading from her tactical display. I'm counting at least 40 warships in orbit. They're not targeting us, but they're definitely watching, Jake nodded. He had expected the Zephyrians to be careful. After all, this was the first time a human ship had ever approached their homeworld peacefully. Commander, Amy called out, we're being hailed. It's Queen Valara again. Put her through. The Queen's voice filled the bridge. Commander Morrison, welcome to Christia. You will be guided to the Crystal Spire, our capital. A docking bay has been prepared for your ship. Thank you, Your Majesty. We're ready to proceed. A group of smaller Zephyrian ships appeared on their screens, moving into formation around the Aurora. Jake watched nervously as they guided his ship toward the planet's surface. The crystal spire was even more impressive up close. It was a massive structure that seemed to grow right out of the planet's surface, extending both deep underground and high into the sky. The walls were made of living crystal that pulsed with soft light. Jake could see other ships docked at various levels, but none of them were human. "I've never seen anything like this," Dr. Clark said, joining Jake at the window. "The entire structure appears to be alive." The Aurora settled into the docking bay with a gentle thud. Jake looked around at his crew. They all looked nervous, which was understandable. They were about to step onto an alien world into the heart of their enemy's capital. "Lisa, you and Dr. Clark will come with me. The rest of you stay with the ship and be ready for anything." "Sir," Amy said, "what if something goes wrong? What if we need to leave quickly?" "Then you leave without us," Jake replied. "But I don't think it will come to that." Jake, Lisa, and Dr. Clark put on their dress uniforms and checked their weapons. They were not planning to fight, but it was better to be prepared. As they walked toward the airlock, Jake felt his heart beating faster. The airlock opened, and they stepped into a corridor made entirely of crystal. The walls, floor, and ceiling all seemed to be carved from a single piece of transparent material. Light moved through the crystal in patterns that reminded Jake of flowing water. A group of Zephyrians was waiting for them. Jake had seen their kind before, during the war, but always through weapon sights or on tactical displays. Seeing them up close was different. They were tall and elegant, with skin that looked like it was made of living crystal. Their bodies seemed to shift and change color as they moved, reflecting different shades of light. The leader stepped forward and spoke in that same musical voice Jake had heard on the communications. "Welcome, humans. I am Aurelia, crystal singer of the royal house. The queen awaits you." Jake tried to hide his surprise. Crystal singers were supposed to be powerful warriors, the elite of Zephyrian society. But Aurelia was treating them like honored guests. "Thank you," Jake replied. "We're honored to be here." Aurelia led them through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. The walls were covered in patterns that moved and shifted, telling stories Jake could not understand. Other Zephyrians watched them pass, their crystal faces showing curiosity rather than hostility. "This is incredible," Dr. Clark whispered. "The entire structure is a living organism. It's responding to our presence." Jake noticed it too. The light patterns in the walls seemed to follow them as they walked. It was beautiful, but also slightly unsettling. They entered a large chamber that took Jake's breath away. The ceiling was so high he could barely see the top, and the walls curved gracefully in all directions. Light seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, creating a gentle glow that made everything look magical. In the center of the chamber stood a throne made of pure crystal, and on that throne sat Queen Valara. She was magnificent, taller than the other Zephyrians, with skin that sparkled like diamonds. Her hair, if it could be called hair, was made of crystal fibers that moved like they were underwater. When she looked at Jake, her eyes were like looking into pools of liquid light, but it was what lay beside the throne that made Jake's heart stop. A young Zephyrian was lying on a crystal platform, completely still. Her skin, which should have been bright and colorful like her mother's, was dull and gray. Cracks ran through her crystal body like broken glass. Even from across the room, Jake could see that she was barely alive. "Princess Liana," Queen Valara sighed, her voice heavy with sadness. "My daughter, the heir to our empire." Jake, Lisa, and Dr. Clark approached the throne. Jake had met many important people during his career, but he had never been in the presence of royalty before. He was not sure what to do. "Your Majesty," he said, bowing his head slightly. "I'm Commander Jake Morrison. This is Captain Lisa Harper and Dr. Ryan Clark. I know who you are, Commander. I have studied your records. You are known as an honorable man, even among your enemies." Jake felt uncomfortable. "I'm just a soldier, Your Majesty. I do what I think is right." That is why I asked for you specifically. The queen stood up from her throne and walked toward them. My daughter is dying of crystal decay syndrome. It is a rare disease that affects our royal bloodline. Our healers have tried everything, but nothing works. Dr. Clark stepped forward. Your Majesty, I'm not sure how human medicine could help. Our biology is very different from yours. I know, the Queen replied, but I have learned of your recent work with quantum cellular regeneration. Your species has a gift for finding new solutions to old problems. You think differently than we do? Jake looked at the princess again. She was young, probably no older than a human teenager. Her face was peaceful, but he could see the pain in her features. What exactly is crystal decay syndrome? Dr. Clark asked. It is a genetic condition that causes our crystal structure to break down, Queen Valara explained. It usually affects only 1 in a million of our people, but in the royal bloodline it is more common. My daughter began showing symptoms 3 months ago. The queen walked over to her daughter and gently touched her face. The princess did not respond. Our healers say she has perhaps a day left. Maybe less. Jake felt a chill run through him. He looked at Lisa and Dr. Clark, who both looked shocked. Your Majesty, Jake said carefully, even if we wanted to help, we don't know anything about your biology. We might make things worse. I understand the risks, the Queen replied. But if we do nothing, she will die anyway. At least this way, there is hope. Jake walked closer to the princess. Even dying, she was beautiful. Her crystal skin caught the light and threw it back in gentle patterns. He could see why her mother was desperate to save her. Dr. Clark, Jake said, what do you think? The doctor was already examining the princess with his medical scanner. I'm reading some very strange energy patterns. It's like her cellular structure is falling apart at the quantum level. Can you do anything? Dr. Clark looked uncertain. Maybe the quantum regeneration techniques we've been developing might work, but it would be extremely dangerous. We'd be experimenting on a dying patient with no idea what might happen. Queen Valara stepped forward. Doctor, I am willing to accept any risk. Please, if there is any chance at all, you must try. Jake looked around the chamber. Other Zephyrians had entered quietly, watching the scene. He could see hope and fear in their crystal faces. There's something else you should know, the Queen said quietly. If my daughter dies, there will be a succession crisis. The military faction led by General Thaxon opposes any contact with humans. They believe we should destroy your species entirely. What are you saying? Lisa asked. I'm saying that if Princess Liana dies, there will likely be a civil war. And if General Thaxon wins, he will declare total war on humanity. Jake felt the weight of the situation settle on his shoulders. This was about more than just saving one life. The future of both species might depend on what happened in this room. We'll try, Jake said finally. Dr. Clark, what do you need? The doctor looked nervous but determined. I'll need to bring some equipment from the ship. And I'll need to work with your healers to understand her condition better. Queen Valara smiled for the first time since they had arrived. Thank you. Commander, you may have just saved 2 civilizations. As Dr. Clark hurried back to the ship to get his equipment, Jake stood beside the dying princes and wondered if they were about to make history or the biggest mistake of their lives. Dr. Clark returned to the throne chamber 30 minutes later, carrying 2 large cases of medical equipment. Behind him came Tony Martinez, the Aurora's chief engineer, and Beth Carter, the ship's navigator. Jake had asked them to help with the technical aspects of whatever they were about to attempt. I brought everything I could think of, Dr. Clark said, setting down his cases. But I have to be honest, Your Majesty. After examining the princess, I'm not sure this will work. Queen Valara looked worried. What did you find? The crystal decay syndrome is unlike anything I've ever seen. It's not just a disease. It's like her entire genetic structure is breaking down at the quantum level. The crystal formations in her body are losing their ability to hold together. Jake watched as Dr. Clark opened his cases and began setting up his equipment. The medical devices looked strange and out of place in the beautiful crystal chamber. But there might be a way, Dr. Clark continued. Our quantum cellular regeneration process works by rebuilding damaged cells at the molecular level. If we can combine it with Zephyrian crystal healing techniques, we might be able to stop the decay. Aurelia, the crystal singer who had guided them earlier, stepped forward. I am skilled in the healing arts of our people. I will help however I can. Good, Dr. Clark said. But there's a problem. The process will require someone to act as a quantum bridge between human and Zephyrian biology. It's extremely dangerous. What kind of dangerous? Jake asked. The person acting as the bridge would have to channel massive amounts of quantum energy through their own body. It could be fatal, Queen Valara looked stricken. I cannot ask you to risk your life for my daughter. You're not asking, Jake said. Firmly, I'm volunteering. Commander, no, Lisa said quickly. This is insane. We don't even know if it will work. Before Jake could respond, Amy's voice came through his communicator. Commander, we've got a problem. I'm detecting ships approaching from the outer system. Lots of them, Jake activated his communicator. How many ships, Amy? At least 20, sir. They're Zephyrian military vessels, and they're moving fast. Queen Valara's face changed color, shifting from blue to a worried orange. General Thaxon. He must have learned about your arrival. Who is General Thaxon? Jake asked. The commander of our military forces. He has always believed that humans are our enemies. He thinks I am making a terrible mistake by asking for your help. Jake felt his stomach tighten. Will he try to stop? U.S.? I don't know. As Queen, I have the authority to make this decision. But if he believes I am putting the Empire in danger, he might act against me. Dr. Clark looked up from his equipment. How long do we have? The ships will be here in about an hour, Amy's voice replied through the communicator. And how long will the procedure take? Jake asked. At least 2 hours, Dr. Clark said, maybe more. Jake realized they had a serious problem. Even if they started immediately, General Thaxon's forces would arrive before they finished. And if the general decided to stop them, there would be nothing they could do about it. Your Majesty, Jake said, can you contact General Thaxon? Explain what we're doing? Queen Valara shook her head. I have tried. He refuses to speak with me. He believes I have been corrupted by human influence. Lisa stepped closer to Jake. Commander, we should leave. This is getting too dangerous. We can't leave, Jake replied. The princess is dying. And if she dies, there might be a war anyway. But if we stay and General Thaxon captures us, we could start a war right now. Jake looked at the princess lying on the crystal platform. She looked so young and peaceful. He thought about his own daughter back on Earth, and how he would feel if she were dying. Dr. Clark, if we're going to do this, we need to start now. The doctor nodded. I'll need a few minutes to set up the quantum bridge. Tony, can you help me with the power connections? Tony Martinez was already examining the Zephyrian power systems. This is amazing technology, Commander. Their energy conduits are made of living crystal. I think I can connect our equipment to their systems. As Tony and Dr. Clark worked, Jake's communicator crackled again. This time it was a different voice, speaking in heavily accented English. Human vessel, this is General Thaxon of the Zephyrian Military Command. You will leave our space immediately. Jake looked at Queen Valara, who nodded for him to respond. General Thaxon, this is Commander Jake Morrison. We're here at Queen Valara's request to provide medical assistance. The Queen has exceeded her. Authority, you will depart now, or you will be destroyed. Queen Valara stepped forward and spoke in her own language. Her voice was firm and commanding. General Thaxon responded angrily, his words sharp and threatening. What did you tell him? Jake asked. I told him that I am still Queen and that he will not interfere with my decisions regarding my daughter's life. And what did he say? He said that I am no longer fit to rule and that he will do whatever is necessary to protect the Empire. Jake felt a chill run through him. This was exactly what he had been afraid of. Their attempt to help was creating the very conflict they were trying to prevent. Commander, Dr. Clark called out, we're ready to begin, but I need to explain something first. Jake walked over to where the doctor had set up his equipment. The quantum bridge device looked like a metal headband connected to a large control unit. The procedure works like this, Dr. Clark explained. You'll wear this device, which will connect your nervous system to both the princess and our quantum regeneration equipment. Your body will act as a filter, converting human quantum energy into something her crystal biology can use. What are the risks? Jake asked. Quantum energy feedback could damage your nervous system. At worst, it could kill you. At best, you might be unconscious for days. Jake looked at the device, then at the dying princess. And if we don't do this, she dies within hours. Jake's communicator crackled again. Commander, this is Amy. The general ships are moving into attack formation. I think he's serious about stopping us. How long until they arrive? 30 minutes, sir. Jake made his decision. Dr. Clark, let's do this. Commander, please reconsider, Lisa said. Even. If this works, we might not survive long enough to see it. Then we'll die trying to save a life instead of running away from one. Dr. Clark placed the quantum bridge device on Jake's head. It felt cold and heavy, and Jake could feel a strange tingling sensation as it connected to his nervous system. You ready? Dr. Clark asked. Jake looked around the chamber. Queen Valara was watching him with hope and fear in her eyes. Aurelia stood ready to help with the crystal healing techniques. Tony and Beth were monitoring the power systems. Lisa looked worried but determined. I'm ready, Jake said. Beginning quantum bridge activation, Dr. Clark announced. Jake felt the device come to life. Energy flowed through his body like electricity, but stranger and more powerful. He could feel the princess's life force, weak and fading. He could also feel something else, something that surprised him. Dr. Clark, Jake said, his voice strained. There's something you need to know. I'm reading quantum patterns in her biology that match human signatures. That's impossible, Dr. Clark replied, checking his instruments. No, it's not, Aurelia said quietly. There are legends among our people. Stories that say both our species came from the same place long ago. Jake felt the energy building in his body. The quantum bridge was working, but it was more intense than he had expected. He could feel the princess's crystal structure beginning to respond, the decay process slowing down. It's working, Dr. Clark said excitedly. Her cellular regeneration is increasing. But Jake could also feel the strain on his own body. The quantum energy was burning through his nervous system like fire. He gritted his teeth and held on. Commander, Amy's voice came through the communicator. General Thaxton's ships are here. They're surrounding the crystal spire. Through the chamber's crystal walls, Jake could see the shapes of warships moving into position. Red lights flashed as weapon systems powered up. Your Majesty, Jake said through gritted teeth. You need to talk to him. If he attacks while we're doing this, it could kill your daughter. Queen Valara spoke rapidly in her own language, but there was no response from General Thaxton. He's not listening, she said. He's preparing to take the crystal spire by force. Jake felt the quantum energy reaching dangerous levels. His vision was starting to blur, and his hands were shaking. But he could feel the princess getting stronger. Just a little longer, Dr. Clark said. We're almost there. Outside, the first explosion shook the crystal spire. General Thaxton's forces had begun their attack. The crystal spire shook again as another explosion hit its outer walls. Jake gripped the sides of the quantum bridge device, trying to stay focused as energy burned through his body. The princess was getting stronger, but the process was far from complete. Dr. Clark, Jake said through gritted teeth, how much longer? At least another hour, the doctor replied, his eyes fixed on his instruments. Her crystal structure is rebuilding, but we can't rush it. Another explosion, closer this time. Through the transparent walls of the throne chamber, Jake could see flashes of weapon fire. General Thaxton's forces were fighting their way into the crystal spire. Your Majesty, Lisa said urgently, we need to defend this chamber. If the general soldiers get in here, they'll stop the procedure. Queen Valara spoke quickly to Aurelia, who nodded and hurried out of the chamber. A few minutes later, she returned with a group of royal guards. They positioned themselves at the entrances, their crystal weapons glowing with energy. "That won't hold them for long," Tony said, looking worried. "I can hear fighting getting closer." Jake tried to block out the sounds of battle and focus on the procedure. The quantum energy flowing through him was incredibly powerful, but it was also tearing apart his nervous system. He could feel his strength fading with each passing minute. "Princess Liana's life signs are improving," Dr. Clark announced. "The decay has stopped and her cellular regeneration is accelerating." "Good," Jake managed to say. His vision was getting blurry and his hands wouldn't stop shaking. Suddenly, the main door to the throne chamber exploded inward. Through the smoke and debris came General Thaxton himself, followed by a squad of military warriors. He was larger than the other Zephyrians, with skin that looked like black crystal and eyes that glowed red with anger. "Stop this madness immediately," the general shouted in English. His voice was deeper and harsher than Queen Valara's musical tones. The royal guards raised their weapons, but General Thaxton's soldiers outnumbered them 2-1. A tense standoff filled the chamber. "General Thaxton," Queen Valara said, standing between him and the medical equipment. "I forbid you to interfere. I'm still your queen." "You are a queen who has lost her mind," the general replied. "Allowing these humans into our most sacred place, letting them experiment on the royal air. You are no longer fit to rule." "The humans are saving my daughter's life," the queen said firmly. "Something our own healers could not do." "And what will be the price of their help?" General Thaxton stepped closer, his red eyes fixed on Jake. "What will they demand in return?" "Access to our technology, our resources, our secrets?" Jake wanted to respond, but the quantum energy was making it hard to speak. He could feel the princess getting stronger, but his own body was failing fast. "Commander Morrison is risking his life to save Liana," Queen Valara said. "He asks for nothing in return." "Lies," the general spat. "Humans are incapable of such selflessness. This is a trick, a way to get inside our defenses." Dr. Clark looked up from his instruments. "General, with respect, the procedure is almost complete. If you stop us now, the princess will die. Better that she die with honor than live as a human experiment." Jake felt a surge of anger that gave him strength. "She's not an experiment," he said loudly. "She's a child who deserves to live." General Thaxton's eyes narrowed. "A human dares to speak to me of honor? Your species has brought nothing but death and destruction to this galaxy. And your species has done the same," Jake replied. "But right now, none of that matters. The only thing that matters is saving a life." The general raised his weapon, pointing it directly at Jake. "I will not allow this contamination of our royal bloodline." But before he could fire, something unexpected happened. Princess Liana opened her eyes. Everyone in the chamber froze. The princess looked around slowly, her crystal skin now bright and healthy. The cracks that had covered her body were gone, replaced by smooth, glowing crystal. "Mother?" she said weakly. Queen Valara rushed to her daughter's side, tears of joy streaming down her face. "Liana, my dear child, you're alive." The princess tried to sit up, and Jake could see that she was much stronger than before. But something was different about her. Her crystal skin now had patterns in it that looked almost like human DNA structures. "General Thaxton," she said, her voice gaining strength, "why are you pointing your weapon at the human who saved my life?" The general stared at her in shock. "Princess, you have been contaminated by human quantum energy. You are no longer pure Zephyrian." "I am more than I was before," she replied, standing up slowly. "I can feel things I never felt before. Understand things I never understood." Jake felt the quantum bridge device shutting down automatically. The procedure was complete, but the energy drain had left him barely conscious. Dr. Clark rushed to check on him. "Commander, can you hear me?" The doctor asked. "I'm okay," Jake whispered, though he definitely was not. His entire body felt like it was on fire. Princess Liana walked over to Jake, her movements graceful despite her recent ordeal. She placed her hand on his forehead, and immediately Jake felt some of his pain fade away. "How did you do that?" Dr. Clark asked in amazement. "I don't know," the princess replied, "but I can feel his pain and I can help ease it." General Faxon lowered his weapon, but his expression remained hostile. "This proves my point. The human contamination has given you unnatural abilities. You are no longer truly Zephyrian." "No," Aurelia said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at the crystal singer. "She is not contaminated. She is evolved." "What do?" "You mean?" Queen Valara asked. "During the healing process, I sensed something in both the human and the princess. Quantum patterns that should not exist in either species, but do. Ancient patterns that suggest a common origin." Dr. Clark was scanning both Jake and the princess with his instruments. "She's right. I'm reading identical quantum signatures in both of them. It's as if they share some fundamental genetic code." "Impossible," General Faxon said. "Humans and Zephyrians evolved on completely different worlds. Did we?" Princess Liana asked. Her voice was stronger now, and she seemed more confident. "General, you have access to our oldest historical records. Have you ever wondered why there are gaps in our early history? Why we have no records of our species before the Great Migration?" The general looked uncomfortable. "Those records were lost in the ancient wars. Or they were hidden," the princess suggested, "because they contained truths that some people did not want known." Jake was feeling stronger now, thanks to whatever the princess had done to help him. He stood up slowly, supported by Dr. Clark. "Princess," he said, "do you remember anything from when you were unconscious? Any dreams or visions?" She nodded. "I saw things. Images of a place that was neither Earth nor Christia. A world where beings of crystal and flesh lived together in peace. And I saw a great catastrophe that scattered them across the galaxy." General Faxon shook his head. "Ancient legends. Stories told to children." "Then explain this," Dr. Clark said, showing his scanner to everyone. "The quantum patterns I'm reading from both the commander and the princess are identical to energy, signatures we've detected in ancient ruins on 3 different worlds. Ruins that predate both human and Zephyrian civilization." The chamber fell. Silent, even General Faxon seemed shaken by this revelation. "If this is true," Queen Valara said slowly, "then humans and Zephyrians are not enemies by nature. We are family, separated by time and space." Princess Liana walked over to General Faxon. Despite her youth, she carried herself with royal authority. "General, you have served our people faithfully for many years, but now you must choose. Will you continue to fight a war against our own lost relatives? Or will you help us build a new future?" The general looked around the chamber, at the princess who was somehow both Zephyrian and human, at the queen who had risked everything to save her daughter, at the humans who had traveled across space to help strangers. Slowly, he lowered his weapon completely. "I will need time to understand this," he said finally. "But I will not stand in the way of the princess's recovery." Jake felt a wave of relief wash over him. The immediate danger was over, but he knew this was just the beginning. The discovery of the connection between their species would change everything. "Commander Morrison," Princess Liana said, "my people owe you a debt that can never be repaid. You risked your life to save mine. I would do it again," Jake replied honestly. "I know you would," she said with a smile. "And that is why I believe our species can find peace together." Outside, the sounds of fighting were fading as General Faxon's forces received orders to stand down. For the first time in decades, humans and Zephyrians were not at war. Jake looked around the crystal chamber and realized that they had done something much more important than saving one life. They had saved 2 civilizations from destroying each other, but as he watched Princess Liana, glowing with both human and Zephyrian energy, Jake knew that the hardest part was still ahead. Now they had to convince 2 entire species to accept what they had discovered about their shared past. The future remained uncertain, but for the first time in years, Jake felt hope. 3 days later, Jake woke up in a crystal bed inside the Royal Medical Center. His body still ached from the quantum energy exposure, but he felt much better than he had right after the procedure. The room was beautiful, with walls that glowed softly and seemed to respond to his movements. Commander, you're awake, Dr. Clark said, entering the room with a smile. How do you feel? Like I was hit by a spaceship, Jake replied, sitting up slowly. But alive, how is Princess Liana? See for yourself, Dr. Clark said, stepping aside. Princess Liana entered the room, and Jake was amazed by the change in her. She looked completely healthy, her crystal skin bright and colorful, but more than that, she seemed different somehow. More confident, more aware of everything around her. Commander Morrison, she said, I wanted to thank you personally. You saved my life. I'm just glad it worked, Jake replied. How do you feel? Different, she said honestly. I can sense things I never could before. I can feel the emotions of people around me, understand their thoughts more clearly. Dr. Clark says it's because of the quantum connection we shared during the healing. Dr. Clark nodded. The procedure created a permanent link between human and Zephyrian quantum patterns. Princess Liana now carries genetic markers from both species. She's unique in the galaxy. What does that mean for the future? Jake asked. It means I can serve as a bridge between our peoples, the princess replied. I understand both species in ways no one else can. Lisa entered the room, looking relieved to see Jake awake. Commander, we've received word from Earth Command. They want a full report on what happened here, Jake groaned. I can imagine what they think about all this. Actually, Lisa said with a smile, they're amazed. The news about our shared origins has reached Earth, and the government is very interested in establishing formal diplomatic relations with the Zephyrians. What about General Thaxon? Jake asked. Is he still causing problems? No, Princess Liana replied. After he learned about the quantum connection between our species, he spent 2 days studying the ancient records. He found references that support what we discovered. The general has agreed to support a peace treaty between our peoples. Jake felt a wave of relief. The last thing anyone needed was a civil war among the Zephyrians. There's something else, Dr. Clark said. Queen Villara has made a formal request to Earth Command. She wants to establish a joint medical research program between our species. The healing technique we use could help millions of people on both sides. That's wonderful, Jake said. But what about the military implications? There are still people on both sides who don't trust each other. That's where I come in, Princess Liana said. I'm going to Earth as the first Zephyrian ambassador to humanity. I'll work to build trust between our species. Jake was impressed by her determination. That's a big responsibility for someone so young. I'm not as young as I look, she replied, with a smile. In Zephyrian years, I'm actually older than you are. And besides, who better to represent both species than someone who carries the genetic patterns of both? Over the next week, Jake watched as history unfolded around him. Queen Villara and Earth Command worked together to draft the first peace treaty between humans and Zephyrians. The document was complex, covering everything from trade agreements to joint research projects. General Thaxon surprised everyone by becoming one of the strongest supporters of the treaty. He had discovered records in the ancient archives that proved humans and Zephyrians had once lived together peacefully. The war between their species had been based on a misunderstanding that had lasted for centuries. Commander, Queen Villara said to Jake during a formal ceremony, you have done more than save my daughter's life. You have saved both our civilizations from destroying each other. The ceremony was held in the main throne chamber with representatives from both species present. Jake wore his dress uniform and Princess Liana wore traditional Zephyrian royal robes that sparkled with inner light. I hereby name you an honorary prince of the Zephyrian Empire, the queen announced. You will always be welcome in our space, and your word will carry the weight of royal authority. Jake felt overwhelmed by the honor. Your Majesty, I don't deserve this. You do, Princess Liana said, stepping forward. You risked everything to help a stranger. That is the mark of true nobility. The ceremony concluded with the signing of the peace treaty. Jake watched as Queen Villara and Admiral Patricia Wells, who had arrived from Earth, put their names on the historic document. This is just the beginning, Admiral Wells said to Jake afterward. Earth Command wants you to head up the new Human-Zephyrian Relations Department. I'm honored, Jake replied, but I think there's someone better suited for that job. He looked at Princess Liana, who was talking with Dr. Clark about their upcoming research projects. The princess? Admiral Wells asked. She's very impressive. But she's still young. She's the future, Jake said. She understands both species better than anyone else could. If we want this peace to last, we need leaders like her. Admiral Wells nodded thoughtfully. You might be right. A month later, Jake stood on the bridge of the Aurora as they prepared to leave Christia. The ship was carrying Princess Liana and a small group of Zephyrian diplomats to Earth for the formal establishment of diplomatic relations. Are you nervous about visiting Earth? Jake asked the princess a little, she admitted, but also excited. I've learned so much about human culture from you and your crew. I'm looking forward to seeing your homeworld. I think you'll like it. Jake said, it's very different from Christia, but beautiful in its own way. As the Aurora pulled away from the crystal spire, Jake reflected on everything that had happened. 3 months ago, humans and Zephyrians had been enemies. Now they were allies, working together to build a better future for both species. Commander. Amy called from her station. We're receiving a transmission from Earth. It's being broadcast on all news channels. Put it on screen, Jake ordered. The main display showed a news reporter standing in front of the United Nations building in New York. In a historic announcement today, the United Nations voted unanimously to establish formal diplomatic relations with the Zephyrian Empire. Princess Liana, who will serve as the first alien ambassador to Earth, is expected to arrive next week. Jake smiled as he watched the report. The news showed images of celebrations in cities around the world as people welcomed the end of the long war with the Zephyrians. It's hard to believe how much has changed, Lisa said, joining Jake at the front of the bridge. The hardest part is just beginning, Jake replied. Building trust between two species that have been enemies for so long won't be easy. But it's possible, Princess Liana said, overhearing their conversation. I've seen how quickly people can change when they're given a chance. General Thaxton went from wanting to destroy all humans to supporting our alliance. If he can change, anyone can? Jake nodded. The princess was right. Change was possible, but it would take time and effort from everyone involved. Princess, Dr. Clark said, approaching with a datapad. I've been analyzing the quantum patterns we discovered during your healing. I think we're just scratching the surface of what's possible. What do you mean? She asked. The genetic connection between our species goes deeper than we thought. With the right research, we might be able to develop new technologies that combine human innovation with Zephyrian crystal science. We could solve problems that neither species could handle alone. Like, what? Jake asked. Disease, for one thing. The healing technique we used on the princes could be adapted to treat genetic disorders in both species. And that's just the beginning. Imagine what we could accomplish if we combined human space travel technology with Zephyrian energy systems. Princess. Liana's eyes lit up with excitement. We could explore parts of the galaxy that neither species could reach alone. Exactly, Dr. Clark said. This alliance isn't just about peace. It's about unlocking the potential that both our species have been missing. As the Aurora entered hyperspace, heading toward Earth, Jake felt a sense of hope he hadn't experienced. In years, the war was over, but more than that. Both species were about to embark on a journey of discovery that could change the entire galaxy. Commander, Princess Liana said, when we reach Earth, I want to visit the place where you grew up. I want to understand what shaped the man who was willing to risk his life for a stranger. I'd be honored to show you, Jake replied. He looked out at the stars rushing past the ship and thought about his daughter, who was waiting for him on Earth. Soon she would grow up in a galaxy where humans and Zephyrians worked together instead of fighting each other. It had all started with a desperate mother's plea for help. Now it was ending with the birth of a new era of cooperation between two species that had more in common than they ever realized. The future was full of possibilities, and Jake couldn't wait to see what came next.